Welcome to Skinner and Chalmers Weekly Roast. Today, proposals, weddings, and dating apps. Skinner and Chalmers spill the tea on love.
Well. Welcome back, listeners. We've got a very special episode for you today. We've covered a lot of topics on this podcast: education, local politics, meme culture, cats, assassination attempts on me or our hundreds pets. But today, we're diving into something, dare I say, more personal?
That's right, Seymour. This one's going to tug on the old heartstrings a bit. We've had quite a few people ask us, how did it all begin? What's the story behind Skinner and Chalmers? Well, folks, today is the day you get the full, unabridged version.
And let me just say, it's a tale as old as time. Well, not quite. Maybe more like a tale as old as burnt casserole and university projects.
Ah, yes, that infamous casserole. But we'll get to that. In any case, today is all about love. First, we'll tell you about our own middle love story. We'll go through all the ups and downs that are part of a relationship. At the end of the podcast episode, if time permits, we'll touch on dating in today's world. That means how people meet today, what are the pros and cons of online dating apps, and so on. But first of all, let's start from the very beginning of Skinner and my little story. Picture it. A bright spring day, I, the bit younger and vibrant university lecturer, stride into Memberfield Elementary to help launch an innovative education program. Meanwhile, Seymour over here,
the newly appointed eager principal, brimming with passion for my students and big ideas for the school. I remember that day so clearly. He walked into my office with this air of, authority and a little bit of smugness, if I'm being honest.
Smugness? Me, Seymour. I was simply confident in the power of education.
And the first thing you said to me, a newly sworn-in principal, still completely inexperienced, was, "Principal Skinner, I trust you're ready for a radical transformation at this school."
Radical transformation. That sounds exactly like something I'd say. You know, I was on a bit of a mission back then. Cutting-edge teaching methods, inclusion programs, all very serious stuff and very important stuff, if I may add.
Oh, I took you seriously, all right. Yeah. Here comes this university guy, a theoretician who probably has little to no idea of the practical side of school matters, with a whole entourage of meh. But as we sat down to talk, I could see you were more than just talk. Real passion for making a difference, and that I respected.
The mutual respect. That's where it all begins, folks. But let me start with the beginning. I walk in, and there you are. Papers stacked a mile high on your desk, coffee in one hand, looking like you were planning a campaign for changing the whole school system.
Hey, running elementary school is like planning a very big campaign. You try keeping 300 kids in line while balancing budgets and curriculum standards. But yes, I remember that day clearly. You walked in with that calm, composed energy, totally unfazed by the chaos around you. You were literally charming all along.
I've got to admit, I was impressed. You had a lot going on, but you still offered me a cup of coffee. And, cake.
Oh, the cake. Yes. I like to think that was the very first step towards a journey of love. My legendary lemon drizzle cake.
Legendary? I'd call it infamous. That thing was dry, Skinner. I nearly choked.
Oh, come on. It wasn't that bad.
You literally apologized for it while I was eating it. Oh, Nor, I'm so sorry. It's a little overbaked, Superintendent Chalmers. I'm really sorry about that. Could I offer you a glass of water?
Did I? Well, okay, fine. The cake wasn't my finest moment, but it was the thought that counted. Besides, we had a good chat over that dry cake, didn't we? It was the perfect icebreaker, or in that case, lungbreaker.
Well, we did. I didn't want to say at that moment that the cake was far too dry, as I didn't want to come across as rude. But yeah, I think that's when I realized you weren't the uptight principal I'd been warned about. You had heart, and you really showed love and passion for teaching children to be ready for this big, wide world out there. All in all, I think our first few meetings were very professional, but I remember there was some sort of shift.
Right. We had this routine over this year with the university project, discussing lesson plans, schedules, how to engage the students more creatively. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being just about work. A certain lightness has crept in over time, more than just the usual small talk between colleagues.
Yeah, I think the first time I really noticed it was when you started bringing freshly baked cakes from the local bakery nearby to our meetings.
Freshly baked cakes. Oh, please, that's standard hospitality?
Not just cakes, though. You had this habit of sneaking in a little special dessert. One time it was a more expensive cake, another time it was cookies with a nice cold milkshake. I started looking forward to those meetings, not just for the education talk, but for the pastries and for the laughter we had during breaks.
Well, you know me, I do love to have a good cake. I figured why not sweeten the deal. Besides, I could tell you were working hard. I just thought this day needs a break, maybe a slice of pie.
A man after my own heart, clearly. But those meetings, they really became something more. We started talking about things beyond the school walls. Movies, Memifield gossip. That time Anna from Overwatch nearly destroyed the neighborhood city Menapaya with her. What was it again?
Oh, you incident with the nano-boosted coffee machine. Classic Anna. But yeah, we bonded over all those things. We found out we had a lot in common.
We really did. And that's when the lines started to blur. It wasn't just business anymore. I'd catch myself thinking, I really enjoy spending time with this guy.
Same here. But I think the moment that really changed everything was that fateful dinner at my place. Oh, I'll never forget it. That was a long time ago. Probably over 20 years or so.
The famous burnt ham.
Yes, the steamed ham disaster. I was trying to impress you, you know? You thought I'd whip up something nice after a long day. Instead, I ended up with a charred brick of ham and regret.
I remember walking in the kitchen and seeing that thing in the oven. The oven was smoking like crazy, and you just said to me when I pointed out the fire, "Oh, that's not smoke, it's steam. Steam from the steamed clams. We're having mom steamed clams." I didn't know whether to laugh or offer condolences to the ham. But honestly, Seymour, it was endearing. You looked so defeated. But then you pulled out that dessert. What was it again?
Oh, the patented Skinner burgers according to an old family recipe. Redemption, if you ask me.
It really was. Although I still think the burgers looked a lot like the burgers at Krusty Burger. But I think that was the first time I teased you, too. I couldn't resist, but instead of being embarrassed or offended, you just laughed it off.
Well, how could I not? I knew it was terrible. Besides, you were good company, so I didn't mind the ribbing.
I think that's when I knew we had something special. It wasn't just the work or the conversations anymore. It was how comfortable we were around each other. We could laugh, we could joke, and it never felt forced. At the beginning, you were so reserved, along the lines of, for heaven's sake, the superintendent is coming as if I were an end boss in a video game. But over time, we both broke down our walls.
Absolutely. I think that comfort is what laid the foundation for what came next. Little by little, we started hanging out outside of work. Do you remember that weekend we spent exploring Memifield's food scene?
Oh yes, the Memifield food crawl. We must have hit half the restaurants in town over a month. It was such a good time, and I remember thinking, this doesn't feel like just hanging out anymore. There was something more. It was just a very brief, quiet feeling, but it was the first indication for me that there might be something special between us.
No, you were falling for me, admitted.
Falling for you? Come on, after a few meetings, you'll have butterflies in your stomach and won't be head over heels in love straight away. But I admit I was in denial for a bit. I'll be honest, but yeah, it didn't take long for me to accept this feeling in my heart. There was just something about the way we clicked. In addition, love between two of the same sexes was unfortunately not necessarily so widespread back then. Of course, queer people always existed. Love, regardless of gender, identity, or sexual orientation, should simply always be allowed to be lived. I mean, I'm infinitely happy for the openness we have in today's world, also thanks to the queer movement. However, this right is extremely important and must be protected at all costs, as some countries unfortunately still systematically oppress queer people. But yes, I grew up in a generation where there was little to no talk about this kind of thing, where there were hardly any points of contact with the topic in my family either. Luckily, things started to change in the year 1970 with the first Pride Parade in Chicago.
I believe that all too well. In my generation, it was unfortunately also something that wasn't shown quite so openly. Fortunately, that's different today. And yeah, at some point. Then came the big moment between us. You asked me out, remember? Not just as a friend, but on an actual date. Also, kind of Stone Age times from today's perspective.
How could I forget? I was so nervous. You're making it sound all smooth and casual now, but trust me, in the moment, it felt like a major leap. I remember rehearsing what I was going to say in my head like 50 times before I finally blurted it out.
You know, I could tell, but you were so sincere and I was already smitten by then. So it wasn't much of a decision for me. I said yes without even thinking twice.
And that date, I don't think I've ever had such a good time on a first date. We went to that little restaurant by the Memmifield Park, and it felt so easy, like we'd been together for years already.
You're right. It was effortless. We didn't have to pretend or put on airs. We were just ourselves. And that was enough. And you didn't even flinch when I accidentally spilled water all over the table.
Oh, I remember that. I was impressed with how quickly you grabbed the napkins. Crisis averted in seconds.
I've had years of practice, principal duties and all that.
It was such a great night, though. We kept talking, laughing. It didn't feel like a first date. It felt like something we should have been doing all along.
I knew that night that things were going to change between us. And they did, didn't they? We became more than just friends.
Definitely. But what I love most about our story is that nothing ever felt rushed or forced. Everything unfolded naturally, at its own pace. I think that's why we've worked so well together, even from the beginning.
I agree. It's been a wonderful journey. And hey, speaking of journeys, we've got so much more to cover in this episode. That was just the beginning.
Absolutely. We're going to dive deeper into the romance, the wedding, and, of course, how it all continues to this day.
And after that, don't forget, we'll be talking about modern love, dating apps, and how the world of romance has changed so much since we first met. I mean, we didn't even have smartphones back then. That's right, they were still real lumps on the ear.
But before we get there, let's savor this story a little longer. After all, every good love story deserves its time in the spotlight.
Go. So, Chalmers, do you remember that night in the year 99 before the 2000s? I'm talking about the night. You know, the restaurant, the ring.
Oh, how could I forget? It was such a classic Skinner move, quiet, thoughtful, and completely unexpected. I'll never forget the look on your face when you pulled that ring out. You looked like you were hiding a state secret.
Well, to be fair, I was nervous. Very nervous. It wasn't exactly common back then to, well, propose the way I did. I mean, it wasn't a marriage proposal, but asking you to be with me like that. Rings and all. It felt like I was taking a leap.
Oh, it definitely wasn't the kind of thing you heard about every day back then, especially not between two guys sitting in a cozy little restaurant on a Saturday night. A proposal for a partnership was rare back then, whereas today I sometimes hear about it from friends, but that's what made it special, Seymour. It wasn't a big show, no grandstanding, just us, and that's all I ever wanted.
I remember you said something like that afterward. You were glad I didn't make a huge scene, right?
Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I would have said yes, no matter what. But if you'd gone the whole public proposal route, getting the waiter involved, maybe the restaurant clapping, I think I would have melted into the floor. It would have been so much eyes on us.
Oh, you mean you wouldn't have liked the pressure of an audience?
Exactly. You know how much I hate being the center of attention like that, right? There's so much pressure with public proposals, not to mention the awkwardness. It's almost like people expect you to perform, say yes, just because everyone's staring at you. I've even heard of people saying no to the partner afterwards, just to avoid making a big scene. If something like a public proposal is agreed between the lovers beforehand, everything is great, everything is okay. But anything else creates pressure, in my opinion.
You've got a point. I wasn't thinking about it that way at the time, but looking back, I'm glad I kept it simple. It felt more us, if that makes sense.
It was perfect, Seymour. I loved that it was just the two of us, sitting there with our favorite meals, in that little booth at the corner of the restaurant. I remember we both ordered exactly what we always did.
Ah, yes. My classic chicken piccata. I'd had it 100 times before, but for some reason, That night, it tasted even better.
And I went with my usual roast lamb with rosemary. I swear I must have been on their game that night because everything was perfect. The food, the wine, the atmosphere. It was like the universe knew what was coming. It's funny, I've just remembered that we both wouldn't order meat at all in today's restaurants, which we still visit every now and then despite many years of marriage. Over the years, we've become vegetarian for the sake of the environment and the animals.
That's right. Most vegetarians have also eaten meat before. Very few do it from the start. I think that's a very rare exception, but yes, I was a little distracted though at this date. I won't lie. The whole time we were eating, I kept thinking, how do I do this? When do I do this? I had that relationship ring in my pocket the whole time, and it felt like it weighed a ton.
Oh, I could tell something was up. You kept fiddling with your napkin and glancing at your pocket. I thought maybe you were trying to find a polite way to leave early.
I didn't want to interrupt your meal, but I didn't want to wait until dessert either. Eventually, I just thought, all right, Skinner, no more overthinking. Just go for it.
And you did. I remember you took a deep breath, reached into your pocket, and out came that little velvet box. My heart skipped a beat.
I think mine did too. I remember I couldn't get the words out right at first. I fumbled a bit, something like well, I've been thinking you're, really important to me. Very smooth.
Oh, yeah, incredibly smooth. But that's what made it so genuine. It wasn't some rehearsed speech. It was just you, being honest. And I love that.
You said yes before I even finished, though. I remember you just smiled and said, of course, Seymour. And I felt like I could finally breathe again. I hope you understood at that moment that it wasn't a marriage proposal, but a proposal for a relationship.
No worries, I did. And, well, you didn't exactly leave a lot of room for saying no. You had that puppy dog look going on. How could I resist? But jokes aside, it wasn't about the ring or even the gesture itself. It was about the fact that you made it personal. Just us. In that moment, with no expectations other than being there for each other. The ring with our names engraved on it and the date of our first real date. At your place with the burnt steamed ham was the icing on the cake.
I didn't need a whole restaurant full of witnesses. It was always about us, and I'm so glad you felt that too. It's funny how much has changed since then nowadays. People are filming proposals with drones and broadcasting them on social media.
Don't even get me started on that. Can you imagine proposing in front of 1 million online strangers? No, thank you. I mean, hey, if that's your thing, more power to you, but for me, I'd rather keep it between the two people who actually matter.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted it to be a quiet moment. I didn't need a viral video. I just needed you.
And I needed you. That was the beginning of something incredible. But what made it even more special was that by the time you pulled out that ring, it felt like the most natural thing in the world.
Because we'd already built something together. From work to friendship to something so much more. We had already built up a very good basis over the last few years before that. We went down the friendship route, so to speak, before we became a couple. Things just developed naturally till this restaurant evening. And speaking of friendships, I think it was right around then that we realized we shared a certain mutual connection.
Yes, and from Overwatch. What character? I can't believe we didn't figure out sooner that we both knew her and were friends.
I know. How did it take us so long? She was always inviting me to her meetups at her house in the Metopia, but I never realized you were going to the same one.
Same here. I'd been to a few of her gatherings, and then one day, I walk in, and there you are, sitting on her couch like it's the most normal thing in the world.
Haha, I was just as surprised. I just made the joke, well, often here. But honestly, those meetups became some of my favorite evenings. Anna would whip up some crazy concoction. Probably nano-boosted coffee again, and we'd all just hang out, talk about everything and nothing. That's when I really knew how much I enjoyed spending time with you outside of work.
Same here. There was something about those casual meetups, just relaxing with friends, that made me see how much fun we had together as more than just colleagues. I think Anya even knew something was up before we did.
Oh, definitely. She'd give us these looks like, come on, you two. When are you going to figure it out?
And everyone else at those meetups, too. Looking back, it's almost embarrassing how obvious it must have been to everyone else. We thought we were so subtle.
Yeah, real masters of secrecy, weren't we? Everyone in Memafield already saw us as inseparable before we even had a clue.
It's true. We were probably the last ones to realize it, but hey, I wouldn't change a thing. Those early days were awkward, sure, but in the best way. They were real.
And that's what matters. It was our story, unfolding at its own pace, without much internet, without media. Just us, and here we are, all thanks to a university education project, a burnt ham, and some nano-boosted coffee with Anna.
And a lot of awkward but wonderful moments along the way.
You know, once I handed you that ring back in '99, everything just clicked, didn't it? We moved from friendship to something much deeper so naturally, almost like we'd been waiting for it all along.
It really did. Looking back, it was almost surprising how quickly we evolved from just colleagues to something more. I mean, those weekends in the early 2000s, exploring all of Memafield's hidden corners, those little coffee shops no one knew about, the parks where we'd just sit for hours and talk. It felt like a whole new world was opening up for us.
Yeah, those weekends were everything. No matter how busy the week was, we always made time for each other. We'd go to work, deal with the chaos of running a school, but then come Friday evening, it was like the world slowed down just for us. I remember how we used to schedule our weekend adventures with as much dedication as we did work. It was that time together that really solidified our bond.
You say adventures like we were climbing mountains. But yeah, I know what you mean. It was our time to disconnect from the stress of work and just be. We didn't even need to do anything extravagant. I think the best days were when we'd just find a new spot, sit on a bench, and watch the world go by.
True. It didn't have to be anything fancy. Those quiet moments were some of the most special, but, you know, as things deepened, marriage felt like the next natural step, didn't it? It was something we both wanted, but we approached it with caution.
Oh yeah. It took us about, 10 years? Some natural next step that was. You kept nudging, and I kept saying, sure, but have we found the right cake yet?
Oh, I remember that. You were dead set on the cake being just right. I thought you were stalling.
Maybe a little, but listen, you can't rush perfection. It's not every day you find the right cake to symbolize a decade-long relationship. I needed time to make sure it lived up to the occasion.
If you say so. But in all seriousness, when we finally did decide to take that step, it just felt right. After 10 years, we knew exactly who we were, both as individuals and as a couple.
Exactly. It wasn't about rushing into anything. By the time we got married in 2009, we were ready and we both knew it. And honestly, the wedding day, I couldn't have asked for anything better. Well, except for maybe one minor mishap involving an overly ambitious goat.
Oh, don't remind me. That goat nearly stole the show. Who would thought a goat could cause so much drama at a wedding?
Well, to be fair, we didn't know Van Goat back then. If we had, we might have expected something like that. But no, there they were, waltzing in with the biggest, most extravagant cake anyone had ever seen, practically towering over the guests.
That cake was ridiculous. It was bigger than the wedding arch, and it nearly overshadowed our vows.
Right, here we were, standing there all emotional and teary-eyed, exchanging vows. And in the background, there's this goat, proudly dragging in a cake the size of a small mountain.
I was convinced for a second that the cake was going to become the main event. I mean, people love cake, but I didn't expect it to upstage our entire ceremony.
Pay. At least it wasn't a public proposal, right? I'd always said keep the big gestures simple. Can you imagine if I'd been put on the spot with the goat and the cake during a proposal? I'd have panicked.
Yeah, no kidding. But in the end, it didn't really matter. The cake, the goat, all of that was just background noise. What mattered was us, and the people who were there to celebrate with us. It wasn't just about us getting married. It was about bringing together our community, the people who had been with us on this journey all along.
Exactly. Friends, neighbors, colleagues, they all came together. And what I loved most was that it wasn't some huge, overblown event. Sure, there were quirky moments like the goat, but we still managed to keep it intimate. We wanted our loved ones there, but nothing too over the top. Our families were there. Even the mayor came by in person when he saw the small marquee on the meadow.
We even managed to wrangle in some of the pets, remember? The ones that could behave, at least. Not all of them got the invitation, but two came along with their leashes.
Oh yeah, can't forget about that. Little Max with his bow tie trying his best to be on his best behavior. I think he was more excited than some of the guests.
And then, of course, there was Echo. Do you remember the epic karaoke session she started at the reception? It was supposed to be a quiet dinner, but once she got hold of the microphone, all bets were off.
How could I forget? Echo turned our reception into the Memmerfield version of a rock concert. She had half the guests up there belting out songs like their lives depended on it. It was chaos, but the best kind of chaos.
It really was. And that's what I loved about our wedding day. It was full of unexpected moments, some laughter, some heartfelt moments, but at the core of it, it was just us and the people we love. We didn't need anything more.
That's right, that's all we needed. And there were so many wonderful moments that we were able to collect at our wedding back then, starting with the great wedding pictures from this company with that catchy saying, something like "You're not failing, you're succeeding." Then there was the wedding newspaper that our friends and family made for us. The dancing in the evening, not forgetting, of course, the food and the small fireworks display in the evening. But I think the best part, though, was the vows. I mean, there was a lot happening that day, but when we stood there saying those words to each other, it felt like everything else disappeared.
I'll never forget that moment. I remember looking into your eyes and thinking, this is it. This is everything I've ever wanted. The vows were more than just words. They were a promise. And I think even now we still live by those promises every day.
We really do. It's not always easy balancing our careers, our personal lives, but through it all, we've always had each other. That's what makes everything else manageable.
And I think that's the secret, isn't it? Finding those moments of support and understanding. Even in the chaos of life, it's what's kept us strong all these years.
You're right. We've built something really special, both personally and professionally. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Me neither. Looking back, I wouldn't change a single thing. Well, maybe I'd make the cake a little smaller.
Or leave the goat at home, but you know what? Even the mishaps were perfect in their own way. They made our wedding day uniquely ours. Ours. You know, I'm sitting here reminiscing about our wedding, and it's just, I don't know. It makes me so unbelievably happy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just being with you, thinking about how far we've come. I'm probably going to embarrass you, but I feel like giving you a little kiss right now.
A kiss mid-podcast? Well, I won't say no to that.
Come here, then.
Soft sounds of laughter can be heard, followed by a brief pause.
Well, now that's a first for the podcast. Not that I'm complaining.
Look, I'm just so happy, that's all. But enough about our mushy moments. Let's talk about something that isn't nearly as romantic. Today's dating scene.
Oh boy, you mean the world of swipes, likes, and well, also ghosting?
Exactly. I was talking to a friend the other day who's been trying out Tinder and Bumble, and let me tell you, it sounds like a madhouse out there sometimes.
Oh, I believe it. It's so different from when we first met. Back in our day, you couldn't just swipe right to find love. You had to do things the old-fashioned way. Like awkwardly trying to make conversation in the break room or accidentally burning a ham.
Right? There was no algorithm to nudge us toward each other. It was just pure, unfiltered awkwardness. But now, it's a whole different ballgame. From what I hear, dating apps have made things both easier and more complicated at the same time.
I've heard the same. There's a convenience to it. You can scroll through dozens of profiles in minutes, chat with people from the comfort of your couch. But there's a downside to that, too. It's become, well, a little superficial, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about the swipe now. You see someone's face for what, 3 seconds? And then you make a decision. Yes or no. It's like shopping for groceries, except the tomatoes can ghost you if they feel like it.
Oh, the ghosting. That's what gets me. But it's a common phenomenon. One moment you're talking and then, poof, they're gone without a trace. But I can also understand telling someone directly, hey, it's not going to work. That also takes a bit of courage. Back when we were dating, if someone ghosted you, it meant they actually moved to another town.
Exactly. Nowadays, they just vanish into thin air, probably still living in the same apartment. But seriously, I can't imagine how frustrating that must be, pouring your time into getting to know someone, and then they disappear like they were never there.
It's not just the ghosting. I think one of the big issues with dating apps is that they make it all feel so transactional. You're not really connecting with someone. It's more like ticking boxes, swiping through profiles until you find someone who fits this narrow definition of perfection. Not to mention the fact that such apps are naturally developed with profit in mind. Again, understandable from an entrepreneurial perspective, but yes, this aftertaste naturally remains.
Exactly. It's like the algorithms only push forward the conventionally attractive profiles, and everyone else gets left in the dust, at least exaggeratedly formulated. I've heard horror stories, people who spend hours swiping and barely get any matches. It's like these apps are designed for the top 5 of users, and everyone else is just there to make up the numbers.
And that's where it really hits people's confidence, doesn't it? You start to wonder, is there something wrong with me? Am I not good looking enough? Such thoughts can be brutal.
It's true. I've seen friends get so disheartened because of it. They feel like they're not getting matches, not because they're not great people, but because the app is just, well, a bit of a weekend market. The people who get the most attention are often the ones with the most polished profiles, perfect photos, clever bios.
And that's the thing. It's all so curated. People are only putting their best foot forward, which is fine, but it makes it hard to really know who someone is. In addition, the profile descriptions leave little space. But, well, people won't want to read through novels. When we met, we got to know each other for who we were, flaws and all. But these apps, they filter out all the messiness of real life. You're just presenting your best side.
Exactly. It's like you're presenting a version of yourself that isn't entirely real. It's all about the image, and that can make it hard to form deep connections. Of course, you can't avoid meeting and getting to know each other in real life anyway, logically enough. From this point of view, apps like this are great for speeding up the meeting process.
Yeah, to be fair, there's potential there too. I mean, a lot of people meet online nowadays. Statistically, it's the most common way couples meet nowadays, isn't it? Nothing to do with meeting at university, work, or friends. Online is the new way to go.
Oh, for sure. I've heard so many success stories of people who found lasting love through these apps. It's not all doom and gloom. For some, it works wonders. I guess it's about finding the right balance. Using the technology, but not letting it dictate your entire approach to love.
Yeah, and I think that's key. Dating apps can be a great tool, but they shouldn't be the only tool. You still need to have that real-world connection, that ability to relate to someone beyond the screen.
So true. Honestly, maybe Memofield needs its own dating app. Forget Tinder and Bumble. We could have made Match, where the main selling point is that you have to meet at the local park or the library. No swiping, just casual walks and awkward book recommendations.
Oh, I love that! Me Match, where the algorithm is just us setting people up randomly and sending them on a scavenger hunt across town.
Hey, it could work. Memofield's got its hidden gems. Who wouldn't want to find love while tracking down the best coffee spot or bookstore?
You know, you joke, but I can see it happening. People might actually appreciate the chance to meet face-to-face without the pressure of perfectly curated profiles. It's a bit like how we found each other, organically through shared experiences.
Exactly. And look at us now. No swipes, no algorithms, just two people who connected in the real world. I think that's the key takeaway. Real life is still the best, but you have to have the chance to meet someone first. People who don't like socializing or partying, for example, have fewer opportunities in real life, which is exactly what apps like this are great for. But whether you meet online or in person, what really matters is the connection you build, not how you got there.
Definitely. And hey, if someone finds love through Tinder or Bumble, more power to them. But it's important to remember that love isn't about swipes or likes. It's about understanding, support, and showing up for each other, whether that's in person or through a screen. Even if, of course, everyone has their own understanding of love.
Well said, my love. And who knows, maybe there's a happy couple listening to this right now who met through an app, laughing at us old-timers reminiscing about the good old days.
I hope so. Some of our viewers are sure to have already found love. For those, remember what you have is unique. I know in everyday life you tend to take things for granted, but don't forget, you have something marvelous. Keep reminding yourself of that. You are searching for this wonderful love. Be excited about the journey you will start sooner or later. Use the time to pack the things you need so that you have everything you need on the trip and can fully enjoy the journey. I just hope our listeners remember to put the phone down every now and then and experience life outside of the app together. That's where the real magic happens.
Agreed. Whether it's Meme Match or Tinder, the goal is the same. Finding someone who makes you feel like that kiss mid-podcast was totally worth it.
Well, I'll always be ready for another one.
We'll save that for after the episode, dear.
You know, as we wrap up this episode, there's something I really want to say to everyone listening. Love, it comes in all forms, whether it's romantic love, love between friends, or the love you have for your family. It's all equally important.
Absolutely. It's not just about finding a partner, though that can be wonderful. Sometimes the strongest love is the one you share with friends, the people who've been by your side through thick and thin.
And whatever form that love takes, it's valid. You don't have to fit into any particular mold or expectation. Love how you want to love, no matter who you are or what your identity is. That's the beauty of it. It's yours to define.
Exactly. And for those of you out there who are still searching for love, whether through apps, in person, or just in your own time, we wish you all the best in that journey. We wish you all the best in that journey. And if you already have a partner or multiple partners, we hope you're having the best time, however that looks for you.
And if you're not in a relationship, remember, you've got love all around you, friends, family, even your pets. Don't forget to cherish those connections too. They're just as important and just as meaningful.
Yes, hold those people, or even your cats, close. And don't forget to tell them how much they mean to you. Sometimes it's the little moments of appreciation that remind us of the love we have in our lives. We have in our lives.
Exactly. Life can get busy, but take the time to acknowledge the people who matter to you. Whether it's a quick message, a phone call, or a simple hug, it all counts.
And hey, if anyone listening is on their own love journey, remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's okay to take your time, figure out what feels right, and most importantly, enjoy the process.
So from both of us and our producer, Dezens, we wish you luck. Whether you're navigating dating apps, enjoying time with your loved ones, or just figuring things out, you got this. We're rooting for you.
Absolutely. And remember, love doesn't have to follow a script. It's about what makes you happy, what fulfills you.
Well said, dear. So to all our listeners out there, go out and spread a little love today. You never know just how much of an impact it can have, whether it's for a partner, a friend, or even a stranger.
And with that, I think it's time for us to sign off. But not without reminding you to cherish the people around you and appreciate the love that's already in your life.
Wishing you all happiness, connection, and love in whatever form it takes.
Until next time, folks, stay kind, stay true to yourself, and remember, love always finds a way.
Take care, everyone.